protective measures against mobile communications radiation in everyday life. Devices at home. I would like to show you that radiation exists and that unfortunately often the strongest emitters can be found in your own house. So before we do everything to make sure that the antennas in town are turned off, or that the house is shielded, which is very expensive and takes a lot of effort, but is still very worthwhile, so I would recommend turning off all emitters in your own house right away and using radiation-free alternatives. First of all, let's take a look at the DECT cordless phone. The basic value here in the film studio is great. You hardly hear anything. It's like the whisper of the sea. And now let's adjust this. Bright red. The tone means very strong radiation. And now I turn it off again. Uh-oh. It starts to radiate in pulses. What is the problem now? I actually did turn it off. Of course, this one has a battery, and even when it's not in use, it emits radiation. Now I do turn it off. Done. So I would recommend no DECT phones for the sake of your health. There are great alternatives. In fact, we have here the fabulous cord phone. I have one of those in my office and I'm totally impressed. You don't need anything else. Okay, you could get an extension cord, you can buy it anytime, or you can get a longer cord. Then you can just walk around with the entire phone. And if that's still not good enough and you have to go to other floors, then there are, of course, even longer cables available. When you're in the garden, it gets a little more tricky, difficult, but that's no real problem either. This is a great distributor. It splits the phone signal into two. That means I can connect the phone and also the bell that carries the same signal outside.
Und einmal die Glocke, die dasselbe Signal nach außen trägt.
But there are also people who say, I absolutely need my mobile phone. They have to be available during the day. Alright, but then at least switch to flight mode during the night. That works, and then you don't need to be reachable all the time. I talked to a company manager recently and he told me that he reintroduced the landline phone for himself. He was always available with his mobile phone. He was getting more and more stressed, and at some point he announced a schedule and said, you can reach me via landline. And it still works. One teenage guy said to himself, I'll get rid of my cell phone. I don't need it anymore. Even though at work everyone says, hey, you have to be in the WhatsApp group so you know what's going on. He still logged off and said, there's a secretary for that. I personally don't have a cell phone either, and I'm totally impressed, and I really can do without it. The next radiation source is Wi-Fi. And we have a wonderful value here. Now I turn it on. Bright red. Again, totally maxing out. This is not because someone is in the internet, but simply because even in standby mode, it radiates. And now I unplug it again. Perfect. My recommendation is unplug it completely and only work with internet LAN cable. Okay, if you don't have a socket and you do really need it, then only turn it on when you actually need it and turn it off completely at night, of course. This is still unhealthier for children who are not fully developed yet. Now when you've turned everything off again, have good conditions again and notice, oh, there's radiation again? It's probably the neighbor. Talk to each other. We heard that a group of neighbors agreed to turn off the Wi-Fi at 11 p.m. More and more devices have Bluetooth built in. For those who don't know about it, those wireless headphones in the ear, for example, are Bluetooth. But unfortunately, also these radiate. You see more and more Bluetooth offers on the market. For example, this headset also has Bluetooth in it. But also on coffee machines, laptops, printers, cars, TV sets, color light bulbs, fitness trackers, baby phones, you will find more and more Bluetooth, which radiates. This box here also has Bluetooth. And now, under Settings, I activate Bluetooth.
Bluetooth an.
Good. Now I deactivate it again. Great. Well, Bluetooth is not recommended. And above all, the great thing is that you can still listen to something with a box. You just need the connection cable. Then you can plug it in here and you can listen from the player or from your laptop or computer. Same thing here with the mice. They radiate just when they are needed. If I don't move them, they won't radiate. And now, off and great. But also here I actually recommend mouse with cable. It works too. And of course you will also find alternatives to all devices. You will find another color light bulb with a remote control that doesn't radiate. Headphones with cable, coffee machines that you can operate directly instead of via your mobile phone. Also with a baby monitor, you can leave the door open a bit and you can hear the baby. Imagine that. This thing radiates so strongly even though you haven't given it a printing job yet. Now I think a lot of people have such devices at home which they don't even use with Bluetooth, but they still radiate. How can you figure out how to deactivate Bluetooth? Take the model number of the device, enter it into the internet, find the manual, and you'll find out how to deactivate Bluetooth. Here we are just giving an example. It radiates and it is not even active. It radiates all the time. Here in a slightly more complicated way, I can deactivate Bluetooth. 1, 2, 3, 11, 12. It is also important to deactivate Bluetooth and Wi-Fi on your laptop or computer. Even if you don't need them, they will still radiate. Another little hint. When buying equipment, you can also talk to the salesperson and explain how dangerous Bluetooth is. The more people complain, the more they have to deliver products without Bluetooth. Who hasn't experienced it? Stress in the kitchen. Yes, and now something insanely good has come onto the market, namely the induction stove. It gets hot incredibly fast with magnetic fields and so on. Ingenious. But we have to measure it. It's low frequency now. Now we have good values here. The light shows it. I'm going to turn on the stove, choose my hot plate, turn on the highest level, and it takes a little while, but the problem is, I'll tell you in advance, it radiates. And if you're pregnant, you have a big belly, lots of water, and that attracts the radiation even more. So it's not suitable at all. But if you can't afford to just buy a new stove, then I advise you to buy such a protection apron for your belly, at least when cooking. My colleague will still tell you more about that. Bright red. I turn it off. Perfect. The last thing we will do together now is, and I just think this is the most insane of all, the microwave oven check. Again, the value is perfect. And now let's see how it looks when we turn on the microwave. Unbelievable. Here's a little food for thought. Careful attention was paid to the fact that what the animals were given to eat was prepared shortly before in an ordinary household microwave oven. And of course also the water they were given to drink. They were given everything they needed though. So for the cats, it was a real luxury in the beginning. Isn't it interesting that after only 2.5 to 3 weeks, you could see that these cats completely degenerated? that the cats suddenly changed their feline-specific behavior completely. First of all, they showed homosexual behavior. Nobody knew why, as it was an unnatural form of behavior from a biophysical point of view. Simply because, if it were the norm, then we would all die out within one generation. We would no longer exist. So we should ask, why does this behavior occur at all? And that then in the course of 3 to 4 weeks, the last one after 5 weeks, all the cats died. They died without exception. 8,000 cats all died. Every single one. Although chemically, analytically, everything was still in this food. It had only been in the microwave. And do you know what these animals died of? They died of starvation. Although they had completely overeaten. They were about to burst. Yeah, so I would recommend we should rather take a little more time for preparing a meal instead of eating such food. And then there still is the smart meter, which also radiates very strongly. Under the link www.klar.tv/smartmeter, also at many other sources, you can find all the information about it. Very interesting. Finally, I'll mention low-frequency radiation. Something new again, but not quite. My colleague will report on that later. A short preview. The natural body voltage of the heart is 50 mV to 150 mV. The technically generated voltage of a bedside lamp, for example, is up to 3000 mV. So instead of 50 mV or 150 mV, it is 3000 mV or more. And that's a massively disturbing factor, also a stress trigger. The cables or power strips also radiate. If your job is mainly at the computer, like mine, then I would recommend putting the power strips away from your feet or body. The formula is, the further away from the body, the weaker the radiation. That really feels a lot better. Sometimes my legs rippled inside when the power boards were mounted directly under the desk and I had to work there. And now the next topic, which also concerns low frequency. What I think is really great is turning the power off at night. Ooh, no, I don't mean now. Technician, could you? Thank you. No, what I think is really great is turning the power off at night. If you've worked during the day with that low-frequency radiation around you, then turn off the power, and then you're really at rest. More on this later in the topic block low frequency. Well, I guess that's it for today. Okay, power off. Oh, I meant the camera actually. No problem, doesn't matter. Everything off.